This is Geek Gab with your host, Dornall, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. Geek Gab for Monday, June 23rd, 2025. And today we have guest Christopher DiNote back again on the show. And I don't think we have anything specific that we reviewed this week, but I hear there was a new movie that came out that I want. Oh, yeah, 28 years later that I was mildly interested in reviewing that I might watch for next week.
A zombie
Um,
film that you were only mildly interested in seeing. We have
yeah,
truly entered the dark future. I never thought I'd see this day.
Does this mean 28 weeks later doesn't count? Like, did they just toss that whole one out?
I think they're just going to keep going.
no, they got 28 weeks later, and then they didn't make 28 months later. And so now they made 28 years later. So, yeah. I mean, it's there, it's made, it just got released in theaters. And yeah, there's some other things in theaters now. Hey, I'll make you a deal, John.
Yo,
I'll go watch 28 years later if you go watch the How to Train Your Dragon live action.
oh,
Oh boy, I'm wondering if we're going to get sucked into seeing that one too. The kids like the animated one, and even I enjoyed it too. I like the original movies. I thought they were pretty good.
I remember watching the first one. I liked it. I quite liked it.
I have seen
Um,
the first one. I liked the first one.
I don't know if I can make that deal, DW. I don't have any children that are dragging me out to see that.
That is asking a lot, man. I don't know,
And I
man.
don't drink, so I can't skip through it.
And I can't think of any other movies that are out right now. And all the movies I have watched recently aren't ones I can really get in on reviewing because they're really low budget movies that are, I mean, really low budget movies. I have been wandering down among the dregs of like Roger Corman films and other people of the same level of budgets. And it's okay, so it's not that there's not moments of genuine humor and genius in those movies, because there is, but it's that a lot of the rest of the movie isn't necessarily worth sitting through to get to those genuine moments of genius. And the sad thing is too is like the writing, even on these bad movies or really low budget movies that are okay to decent, but have such low budgets that a lot of the people who are acting in them aren't superb actors. That they're just so much better than modern movies because the people who wrote them have actually met real people in the real world and know how to write characters who are real people or who act like real people. I mean, a lot of the movies I've seen that are modern movies, it's not that their writing is bad. It's just that their characters don't act like any human being you've ever met. And so the entire movie is ruined because They don't talk like people. They don't act like people. And none of the people making it seem to have any idea what the heck's wrong with them. Why people don't like the movies, why people don't enjoy the movies. And it's because they're just plastic people. They're AI people. They're about as real and convincing as those AI videos from a couple years ago where Will Smith was trying to eat spaghetti.
It's like something I saw today while browsing the internet. A similar complaint about it's the millennials, right? It's the millennials. The complaint is you guys grew up talking about how much you loved video games, and you all learned how to make video games and joined all these game studios. And now, and everything since then has been utter crap. What's your excuse? What did you do?
That's interesting. I mean, with at least the older bad movies, the older schlock movies, especially your golden era of bad sword and sorcery and barbarian films, you could occasionally see a former A-lister slumming it. You know what I mean? I think Jack Palance is in half of those things. But, but it kind of goes back to your point. Those were people, at least. I think I was watching The Sword and the Sorcerer. I think that was the one I was watching on Amazon Prime a couple weeks back when I was home and with a rare occasion with nothing to do. And it's like, yeah, it's schlocky. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous and silly, but I'll be darned if it doesn't beat the pants off 90% of what's out there today. Just on principle, just on they at least look and behave like actual people, hamming it up, but nonetheless, people.
It's true, and I blame the internet. It's and I'm one of them. I've been raised on the internet. Sometimes it's hard for me to tell how real people act. Sometimes that's why I do the show so that I can talk to actual people.
Well, it's funny. Like I work for a defense contractor now, and there's definitely interesting moments of generation gap epiphanies, like in the mandatory HR, get to know you kind of stuff. So you got some old guys like me in there with some brand new software engineers, barely out of college or still in college and just working their way through, and they don't talk. They absolutely don't talk. They are content to sit there and stare at a screen. And meanwhile, me and all the other old guys are just talking and cutting it up. And I'm wondering, do they think there's something wrong with us, or is it so obvious that we think there's something wrong with them when we're doing this? It's just really uncanny, man. I don't know what to tell you.
It is. I've been there, and I've been guilty too of, I get it, because when you were dealing with software engineers, as sometimes we just need to tune out and focus, and so that sort of open, talky work environment, we've been trained to shut that out, and and the younger folks as well. We would totally just. I don't find it weird. Man, I'm really putting myself in the crosshairs today.
Well, I get when you're on the job.
I'm saying I've been that guy, and I'm not like a Redditor, anti socializing type of person, but no, it's not weird. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I really like doing this thing. I'm going to keep pressing the button.
Well, I guess the reason I was bringing it up is I get it, man. There's times where you just got to go heads down and just dive into the work. Totally get it. But this was like the orientation thing. I get it. None of us really want to be there because, you get you're getting the HR orientation from the HR lady who's living her best life, and you're convinced that you're really not here to learn anything about the company. You're here to give her an audience so she can convince herself that she's living her best life. I'm sitting there going, yeah, how many glasses of wine you had this morning? But because the cat pictures were in there. But anyway, So it's like that. That's a time where it's like, hey, you know, it's actually okay to talk. It's kind of expected. It kind of makes for awkward. Hi, my name is Bob type introductions. You know, it was very Office Space.
Man,
Right.
You've seen that, right? Office Space.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Just double checking.
I've lived that.
That one hit pretty close to home.
Oh, my wife and I we're joking about it today. How, you know, the smartest dude in that whole movie is the magazine hustler.
Not wrong.
Anyway, that's the practical upshot of watching these. You know, I feel like it's unfair to call them bad movies. They're just really low budget movies. They were made very, very quickly, like within 10 days. This last one I saw, I think it's called Hollywood Boulevard. And it was made using a bunch of sets and costumes and even vehicles from previous Roger Corman films. So it has the cars from Death Race 2000 and the Frankenstein costume and some other costumes. And it uses footage from other films of his. And it's set in a movie company who is like Roger Corman's movie company. They're an El Cheapo movie company. It's called Miracle Pictures. And their motto is, if it's a good picture, it's a miracle. And it's got a noticeable amount of nudity because it's a Roger Corman movie, but it's about a woman who comes out to California to try and make her career as an actress. And, you know, she finally finagles her way into getting this agent, and she gets hired on as a stunt woman at this company because their previous stunt woman jumps out of an airplane and plummets towards the ground and crashes into the ground in grand Looney Tunes style, where instead of leaving a big pile of gore and organs on the ground, they just make a deep hole shaped just like them.
Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah. So it's got a lot of humor that hits. It's got, you know, people in this Miracle Pictures company just keep dying. Like,
why hasn't Quentin Tarantino remade this yet? This sounds like right up his alley.
It's got humor, it's got some thrills, and it's got, you know, a lot of cheesy overacting, but it's still an entertaining movie.
Have you seen the documentary about the Roger Corman made Fantastic Four film?
Yes, I saw the documentary, and then I hunted up the movie through entirely legitimate sources after that and watched the Fantastic Four.
It's funny that you got to preface it with that statement on there too. But, you know, I couldn't get over just how much heart and soul those poor folks put into that thing, man. I mean, and I'm sitting there, it's like Stan Lee doesn't come out looking like a hero in that one at all. You know what I mean? I mean, I can't blame him. Who wants to see their life's work adapted in a less than stellar fashion? But still, man, it was actually pretty funny. It was really really insightful. You know, it was something I found myself pulling for him. You know what I mean?
I think we did an entire show on that, or at least a large part of a show reviewing the documentary and the movie. Back when I saw the documentary and the movie. But so what I'm saying is yeah, it's a low budget movie and it was made quickly, but they make fun of other low budget movies and make fun of themselves as far as Roger Corman's company goes, and put together this murder mystery and have some misdirects and uh, just all kinds of stuff, and have characters who have genuine human aspirations. And if the budget was a little bit bigger and they hadn't had to skip one or two connecting scenes, it would have been, a much better movie. But it was still watchable and it was still enjoyable. Um,
Well, Hollywood's favorite
and
subject is itself. So all of its best films are ultimately about itself anyway. You know what I mean? That's what that's not me. I read that somewhere not too long ago, and I'm sitting there nodding my head going, yeah, a lot of truth to that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I just I wish we could get a new generation of Hollywood writers um, in there who had met real people and hung around real people and could write real people, or who at least could be taught to write real people. Were humble enough to learn how to write real people instead of being ideologically educated and thinking that ideology is more important than personality and drives and values and uh, just seeing what the world is really like and not what ideology tells them it should be like or it must be like.
Well, you got to wonder how small their social circle really is. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like you said, a lot of them probably don't know any real people or haven't in a really long time, where they didn't like them. I mean, there's a reason why all the great, movies of the '80s and whatnot always have the nerd winning in the end, right? It's because that's all these people writing out their revenge fantasies. I mean,
Yeah,
let's face it, that's half of John Hughes's uh, catalog right there. I think. You know what I mean?
it's well, anyways, I've just watched a lot of really low budget movies that are not movies I would normally have watched, and it's surprising how much heart and not even like deliberately, not even from artistic genius or deep wisdom or deep insight, just people who grew up around regular people or who worked around regular people or who were there at a company where they all had to work really hard every day instead of you know, being at Hollywood cocktail parties or cocaine parties or whatever. Um, really taught them what being human is like. So that's just how they wrote. They didn't write plastic people.
Well,
So
here's something. Are there really bad movies, or is it just bad execution? You know how like there's always that meme that floats around now and then that if you had all the money in the world, you'd start a production company dedicated to taking bad movies that had really great ideas and doing them right. You know what I mean? So what do you think? If after enjoying or suffering, depending on your point of view, for through all those recently.
Well, I think all the stuff that we've been talking about, at least with modern movies, is the actual writing, and there's no help in that. If there are so many competent technicians and workers and cinematographers in Hollywood. You can watch a really bad movie that, even if it's nothing special, like the house workers, the no name cinematographers and everything like that, like they'll put out a watchable film. You're just sitting there going, this is so dumb. These don't even sound like real people,
Well, it's kind
you
of
know?
like not to dig up old wounds, but it was kind of like even going back to the even the when Disney first got Star Wars, you were watching it going, wow, the costumes are perfect, the effects are outstanding, the sets look great. All the ephemeral stuff was spot on, perfect, and you can't hate on them for it. But then there's no there,
Yeah.
with the of it, not with the people, not with the story, and you feel bad because nobody. I don't think anybody's. Well, I don't think any of the people you mentioned set out to make a bad film. Those are all pros. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Those are that is what they do for a living. That is how they put bread on the table and all that sort of stuff. So the costume designer is not going to go out of their way to do a bad job. They're going to do the best job they possibly can. Perfect. But you can get all of that right. You get all of that perfect. You can beat the original, the pants off the originals or what have you, and you can still make a terrible movie, no matter how pretty it looks.
And the theme of this show, and I mean, Geek Gab itself over the last 10 years has been time after time in most of the movies we've reviewed poorly has been the writing. It has been the writing of these movies that have sunk them because the technical proficiency of mainstream Hollywood movies has never been higher, but the writing has never missed more. Um, so, all right. Anyways, folks, I want to introduce our guest, Christopher DiNote, who mentioned coming on the show, and I said, sure, why not? And he has got something mysterious and new that has just come out or is just about to come out that he didn't specifically tell me about, but I said, okay, come on the show anyway.
Oh, okay. Hey everybody, it's good to be back on here. Well, a couple things came out, recently. Graduated from author and intern type over at Rack and Tour to line editor. So had have a book out that I edited called Weird Warfare, which is an anthology of fantastically themed military stories. And like any great record album being put together, we got pretentious and it quickly turned into a double concept album. So got followed up real quick with a second one called Band of Monsters. Weird Warfare, Band of Monsters. The guys over at Dirtbaggery Book Reviews have been going through Weird Warfare story by story, and I got to tell you, it's been terrifying. I mean, it's one thing like when you get an anthology review when they talk about the whole book, or there's one in there they didn't like, but it's just one review. No, they've been picking at every single story, and I'm just glad that so far I think they're up to story 9 out of the 11. So far they've been real positive on it, so that's been great. But it's one of those things because I ended up getting 2 in a row, number 49 and 50 out of 54, soon to be 55 Rack and Tour anthologies out. Because there was a concept we were working with. Remember Mike Burke, Spearman Burke? He was on here with me last time. And he got stories. He was editing this thing. It was going to be called Space Malfeasance. And he was kind of looking for military sci-fi stories about, the dirtbags. And by that, I mean, like, if you're like me and you remember being stationed in South Korea back in the day, we used to have this thing called Town Patrol, who would go around the Ville outside the main gates, and you can imagine sort of what their job was. Think the people they go pick up and bring back. And that's what that whole anthem was meant to be about. And the stories coming in just didn't quite, hit the mark. So, what Weird Warfare, really back up for a sec. We had 57 or 58 submissions for that. Insane. Not the highest we've ever had, but pretty high. And I got to tell you, it was incredible just how many freaking good ones we got. And just right away, I'm sitting there going, I've got more than enough for more than one book. So I was going to start, kind of pushing the team, to see if we could fit another one in the schedule. And we're already doing 2 every weeks right now. It's insane, but we're doing it. And so I started putting that second one sort of together with stories that I wanted, contacting editors, authors. I wanted them to do a little bit more work, kind of a just in case thing, so that when we made the very hard decision to pull the plug on that and maybe shelve it for later, the Space Malfeasance. We were able to slot in a second Weird Warfare book like right away. And so far, I think the results have been great. And I'm not lying when I say how good this open call was. I probably already had to make about half of a third book in just what we got in that first open call. It was insane how good universally they were, and they were all over the place. World War II, Napoleon, Vietnam, World War One, the Cold War. Sean Patrick Hazlitt gave us a Cold War story in the first Weird Warfare book that's really freaking horrifying. Reminded me of Creepshow a little bit. It's freaking awesome. Misha Burnett gave us something that was very Steven Spielbergish, but still really cool. And
Oh yeah, that's a name I know. I like when you want weird stuff, get Misha Burnett.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the list.
I was glad to have him on there because it was like yes, something that really set the tone for it. And what was surprising to me was so many good GWAT era stories, because it's not a subject that's been really treated much in military fiction yet, especially not genre fiction, you know what I mean? And we had a bunch. So that was really, really cool. I mean, like we're talking Iraq 2004, 2005, or Fallujah in 2007 with the Marines, Mike Burke again. Stuff like that, or, even the mid 2010s in different parts of the world and all. And it was super good. I figured this is my first time doing this, so I'm like, I'm just try to do that. I'm just gonna try to stack the deck as best as I can, not just with the best 10 and ended up being 11 that I could find, but what ones fit together really well. What order were they gonna go in? Length, tone, all that sort of stuff. Ebb and flow, kind of like putting together a record. So that was the approach that I wanted to take with Weird Warfare, and I got to tell you, I think it paid off. And same thing with the second one. So we'll see if they dig into the reviewers out there dig into the second one and tell me what they think. So that's been the editing piece.
That's awesome, dude. Congrats on going straight into editing.
Yeah, and I still write too. I mean, the thing that I was trying to pip to get on here to begin with, Nate LaPointe over at Miss Creek, Chalk and Dinosaur Planet, and Gun Magus, really sweet book. Is editing there, and he did a Rock and Roll Mercenaries anthology as well that I got selected for, and I got to tell you, that was fun. That was super fun, and that's a book I hope that gets a little bit more oomph behind it too. So it's been kind of busy, and you got to dig that cover there, man. I mean, Cedar Sanderson does our covers at Raconteur, and interior illustrations. Each story has an illustration to go with it, and it's pretty good, man. But I'm super happy about it. And like I said, we had everything from World War II Americans, the RAF, Battle of Britain. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to give away all the monsters and stuff, but I will say this. There's a story by Ruth Thompson in that book, and the Philippines might take the cake for the most messed up, insane folklore of any place on planet Earth. No lie. I mean, they got monsters that are just like, wait, what did I just... I mean, insanely creepy and scary and gross. So... You know what I mean? Some really, really good stuff. So we had wizards in uniform. We had hunting down vampires that are also internationally wanted terrorists. I mean, the whole gamut. A lot of fun. And I hope we'll see about doing maybe another one or two in 2026.
Oh, this is cool too. And you said you got everything you wanted out of these submissions.
And then some. I mean, I hated turning some of them down. And so, like, with a couple authors, I contacted them and said, hey, these are some other open calls that we got, or maybe some other ones that are out there, because I'm like, this story's got to get in print. It just wasn't the right fit for this book. But, we do a third one this coming calendar year, and I'm gonna contact a few people direct and say, hey, man, I want you to resubmit. if you haven't sold it yet. But that's how grateful I was. I'm not even joking, man. Like I said, 57 submissions and 11 in this book, 11 in Band of Monsters, and I easily had 5 or 6, that could have gone towards the third one, just out of one open call over 2 months. So I'd say that's pretty good.
I wanted to ask about the malfeasance, space malfeasance. What was it about the call or the responses that people weren't really honing in on?
We do homework posts on the Raconteur Substack, and sometimes they click with people, like it did for this. I'm sure for Weird War. I don't think it did for them. I mean, I think we got a ton of heist stories, right, by like actual criminals, not not your Joe Barracks king who goes out, gets drunk, gets on the blotter, thrown in the brig, and has maybe made E5 3 times, but is still a pretty damn good soldier, at least as far as being a fighter goes. That sort of thing. I mean, that's sort of what he was going for. And maybe there's just a limitation that if you haven't had some close and personal experience with it, it's hard to tell. But you'd think people would remember the Dirty Dozen or maybe Kelly's Heroes or something. It would kind of click with that. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. That's too bad, though.
There's a chance to come back around again. And like I said, that's not to say that the stories weren't necessarily good. They just weren't the right fit.
Now, something that you said is really interesting to me was you've got really good stories set in the Great War on Terror, and that's really jumped out at me. We here on the Gab, we've seen that too. There's a lot of that influence in Nick Cole and Jason Onspach's
Absolutely.
Galaxy's Edge. That's definitely a Star Wars themed story there, but he's writing from his experiences. We just got a movie which I want to say how good it is, but I haven't seen it yet. There's this movie that came out this year called Warfare.
Oh yeah.
Like we're finally getting war movies made in Iraq or Afghanistan, and not just Zero Dark 30. That was like a specific story about a specific event. This one, about by the soldiers, about the soldiers, and sort of what they experienced.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I do want to see it, and for you guys, and for the audience here, you might want to look up a movie called Mosul. In terms of really wanting to get something that I thought did a good job of like giving you the Iraq War from the Iraqi perspective, and I mean the Iraqi army, the Iraqi national police, and all that other kind of and all their security forces in there. Not to mention, it's a badass action film. So it's really, 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 really well done. Obviously named after the city that it's set in. But if you haven't checked that one out, that's a rock. I think that's a good. Yep, there it is. There it is. Give it a watch. I was really blown away by it. Really, really blown away by it. I thought it was outstanding. I thought it. The picture I threw in it wasn't on purpose, but it was just the only one I could find that could fit the Avatar thing here. That's a picture just of me in Iraq in 2009. Just happens to fit. Besides, I got that sweet deployment combat stash going. Yeah, but
well, you don't get to keep that when you get home.
Not according to my wife. Even though I've been rocking the post-retirement beard for a few months, and I think that's starting to run its course too.
Good for you. I happen to have the opposite problem where I'm like, man, I'm getting really itchy. I want to take this off, and she goes, nope, keep that on. keep that there. Okay.
That seems to be everybody else's wife. I don't get it, but my daughter hates it too. But my son's too young to care. So I'm more worried he's not going to be able to recognize me without it. He's only 5 months old. I'm worried if I shave it all off, he's going to be terrified.
Oh wow, yeah, that could
So-
happen.
Something else that you might have been looking for Space Malfeasance is something like Three Kings.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That's a really good. That's a really good one. Yeah, I think so. Um, and like I said, it not enough of stories that got it. If you know what I mean. And like I said, that doesn't mean that they weren't good. I mean, I'm pretty sure even Mike said so himself too. So, like I said, we might give that one another go. We'll see what happens.
Anyway, yeah, going back to the got Great War on Terror. I really hope to see more stories like that, both just as a sort of a continuation of our culture and there's this great sense and I mentioned earlier, I live online a lot, and there's this great sense amongst us in the sort of online culture that that was everybody's sort of sick of it. It's come up lately in current events where the government takes certain actions, and a lot of us are like, whoa, we don't need any more of this, we don't want any more of this, that sort of thing. It's a huge change in the sort of the way we see ourselves as a people, and I promise I'm trying to keep this more on the culture and more on entertainment rather than um, current events. But our those things affect who we are, and those things get reflected in the stories that we tell and the stories that we enjoy.
Oh, sure. Um, I think there's a bit of distance now that allows for good stories to come out of it. I mean, and good writing too. I mean, there was a few folks between both Weird War books that are out so far that, if not their first published work and they were GWAD veterans, it was their first cover. The first time not being part of Team Man More, first time making the cover. Like one stand. Well, the first story, the very first story in Weird Warfare is called MSR Merlin, and it's convoy ops. It starts out a little bit like that in Iraq in, I think, 2004, and that is the first story out the gate. I mean, so I saw that come in and read it and shared it with the folks at the press, and it's like, dude, that's the opener right there. Another one called Observe and Report, written by a Cav Scout, NCO named T.E. Butcher, and same sort of thing. His is set in like 2012, 2013 time frame, but it's all the familiar jargon and tactics and style and modern day, contemporary army life in there. And these are mixed in for contrast, with stories about World War II and even Napoleon. Like I said, the Battle of Borodino, one of the earliest set story in Weird Warfare, is set at the Battle of Borodino, just outside of Moscow. So, but the contrast, the generational contrast, is stark, but it's important to tell stories about that. World War II stories don't read like GWAT stories, don't read like Vietnam stories, especially when they're written by people that have good either first or family memories, contemporary secondhand knowledge of it, or they just do a really great job in their research. So I think people, if they read these two together, you're going to get a real legit sense of that, the same way that Legionnaire, the first Galaxy's Edge book, nailed it. And that's the best way I can describe it. I'm sitting there reading it when it first came out, going, "I'll be damned, this is it. This is stormtroopers in Iraq, and imagine if they weren't complete putzes." But it just absolutely nailed the tone, the tenor, and the style of it. And it's tough. It's hard to beat. So I think the GWAT stories in here, even if they're not factual necessarily, they're true. I mean, Mike Burke essentially wrote a story about his Marines, transcribed into this, with a little bit of supernatural horror into it, but it's not too far removed from the real thing. I tell you, man, reading that story, I could feel the sand again, and I could smell it.
Wow.
It just brought me right back. It just brought me right back, man. Every little last bit of it, and I was like, damn. And it's funny
He
too
nailed it.
because, yeah, I mean, and he should because it was first hand knowledge to me. So all the GWAT stories that are in there ring very true, even if they're not real. And the observe and report story, I think, is great because it actually pulls in some creepypasta type stuff and SCP and all that. Like, it even hits some of that. And that's about as contemporary, as you can get on that. So now we're getting in the middle of sci-fi and fantasy and horror that's pulling in stuff from really the contemporary era. And that's different for me because, like, I'm coming from remembering stories like Heavy Metal Magazine and the movie, and Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, and Tales from the Dark Side, and stuff like that, and Tales from the Crypt. And that's kind of what's influencing some of my ideas for how to put this together. And then some of those stories come in with things that are a lot more contemporary. And I'm like, okay, so how do we put these together and make it work? And do it in a way that gives you a lot of variety and that really just hits the high points, man, but has enough in there to cover the spread from, let's say, age 22 to 80, something like that.
I was thinking that something that people might have been looking at to be closer to what you want would have been like Platoon.
You'd have to ask Mike, like, for what he was really, really gunning for in that one.
Or me, and I mean just the contrast between the straight soldiers and the sort of layabouts or the relaxed soldiers, or the Shield, but in the military. If you ever saw the television series,
Oh
The
yeah,
Shield.
yeah. I bought the whole series on DVD. Probably pirated at Haji Mart there at Balad, but uh, that's funny because like one of the books we got coming out is called Goblin Souk, and it's as it sounds like a magical market, and it's the third one we had: Marketplace, Bazaar, and now Souk. So that's obviously got a Middle Eastern flair. I had an idea for a story for that one that I'm going to have to save, but it would have been for later. But it was going to be an Iraq story that would have involved a cursed hookah, or as we like to call it, hubbly bubbly over there. So I'm still looking to have some fun with that. But part of like I said, malfeasance. It really is the blotter cases. Like Mike's got a great story in Space Marine 3 anthology that's literally called Blotter, and it's Space Marines in power armor and a combat drop, but the unit's first sergeant is getting pinged while they're in the middle of combat by like the sergeant major and everybody asking about the blotter report, and the four guys getting arrested for brawling with the local civilians, and the dude who's stolen the drunk tank, and the dude who's went out and bought the sports car at 20% interest, and the girl he met last weekend who insists it's his already, and those kind of shenanigans. You know what I mean? But hey, still got to go get out there and get the mission done. So it's which can be hilarious and still a good action story. So he kind of wrote the prototype for what I think we were really looking for in that one, and it's still a really great story too. So Platoon, yeah, maybe on the more serious side. That's a good one. Maybe even Full Metal Jacket, but let's face it, most people don't watch past the first 45 minutes or so of that.
It's kind of true. I remember last time I revisited that, I got to that second half, and it had been like 10, 15 years since I'd seen it, and I went, I really thought this was a different movie. I thought this was not. I did not realize this was the same film.
Whose side are you on, son?
I really like the second half of that film a lot, and I know the first half is so magnetic because of Arlie Ermy, but the second half of that film is really captivating uh, because of the city that they're walking through during the Tet Offensive, and all of that is just. Uh,
Well, it's funny. When I was a kid, I saw Apocalypse Now, probably a lot younger than I should have seen it. And not gonna lie, that left a really big impression on me. Perhaps even in kind of how I pictured things, like the anchor story in Band of Monsters is a Vietnam story. It's a really great Vietnam story by Josh Griffin, and it's I would that's sort of, like I said, that's the heart of that book. Um, in fact, that one I turned around and did the introduction to it in the style of Good Morning Vietnam. And Adrian Cronauer was a real person too. If there's anybody watching who didn't know that, didn't get into too many spats with his superiors, and certainly not uh, Robin Williams, but just something that was that iconic that kind of really set the tone for just everything else that follows in that one too. So it came out right. So we'll see how that one does in the long run too. Let's see. So the first book we dedicated to David Drake, because that was really the first middle sci-fi author I can really remember engaging with, and we dedicated Band of Monsters to Adrian Cronauer just because of everything that he'd done for the troops in real life, and just because of the tone it was going to set. And I wanted to set it apart. I wanted to set the books apart a little bit.
That's good. And hey, how do I put this? Because if you had just if I just read the ingredients about these war stories about soldiers in weird circumstances, there might be monsters, there might be spirits, that sort of thing. Yeah, all the ingredients sounds like something you've read before or you've read about before. You're like, I can sort of picture that. But the picture you painted here is really compelling. It it sounds it sounds like you've tapped into some really good writers and some really really true to life stories. And if I go read this and I find that that's the case, I guess that'll be to your credit for getting these stories put together.
Cool. I hope so. I mean, like, I hope so. You know, the 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 first one has a story called Archangel, which is one of my favorites, and it's set on a alternate universe Russian boomer submarine. So there's a bit of Hunt for Red October, Crimson Tide, and maybe a little bit of Event Horizon going on, and a lot of heavy exposition that's well done of Russian Orthodox theology too to go with it. Um, but you're right that there's no single ingredient that goes into any of these that you haven't seen before, or that you probably don't have an idea how it might get used. But what I like about it is I'm not sure if you've seen them used like this, and I think the mix together really makes them work. Um, both books. I mean, I'm stupid proud of it. That's why I'm still talking about it, and I can't shut up. Um, but I hope so, man. If you go in and read it, the influences are pretty widespread and all over the place. Um, and the individual elements are familiar, but I don't think that I think there's a lot of instances in both of these that nobody's really put them together like this before. There's a GWAT story in Band of Monsters just called Spooks, and it's set in a combat outpost in Afghanistan, and it is a straight up ghost story, and I think you'll dig it. And in the first one, there's a book from a Royal Navy veteran, a story from a Royal Navy veteran called The Goats of Gardos, and dude, this is a straight up schlocky horror story. All right, I mean, it's set in Afghanistan, and I'm telling you, man, this is like straight up Tales from the Crypt. that sort of, or one of something like the movies that Daddy Warpig just recently binged, but really well done. And because it's told from a British perspective, that gives us a little bit a bit of a different spin on how we might otherwise enjoy it. So it was just cool to see, like you said, man, familiar ideas and familiar tropes, and really put through the blender again, and really put together in a bit of a different way.
Awesome. So, well, I guess I'll go back to you putting it together. And we talked about all the different styles and things, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Chris. Uh, at least between like the new guys who are putting out stories, or the old guys that you knew you were gonna get solid submissions from, what do you enjoy more as an editor in general, or at least on this project? Like, uh, was it fun going through the new stuff? Maybe whatever mistakes or fresh ideas, or did you like having a nice, easy, yeah, this guy always turns in a solid script?
Um, oh yeah, it's a good one. I gotta tell you, I tried to be really neutral about it. Um, there were some that I figured would need a lighter touch than others. And even the veterans, writers. I mean, veteran writers here needed some feedback. You know what I mean? To really kick it up to that next level. It's more of a younger, old, newer pro. It was more like I knew what I wanted the book to look like. Like I said, I with this one, I'm a bit of a heavy-handed editor. I admit it. I just try to have good instincts. And being a musician before I was a writer, and then a writer before I was an editor, I was like, okay, so what's an editor really do? Well, I've done some assistant editing stuff, and I'm like, hey, he's kind of like a record producer. Well, okay, I don't think I'm Phil Spector or Brian Wilson, God rest his soul, or anything like that. But I'm like, yeah, the ones that, if you know a producer's name, it's usually because he shaped the record in a way that made it what it is. And I was like, I'm not going to be afraid and try to do the same thing, because I'm like, this is my first shot at doing this. I don't want to screw it up. It was like, I want to do a good job, because with Raconteur, like the vast majority, if not all, of the anthos have either debuted in the top 10 or higher, have gotten orange tags in their respective categories, and I'll be damned if I didn't want to be the first one to flop. So it was more like
Amen.
that. It was more like just that. It was like, nah, man, I don't want to blow it.
Right.
So it wasn't even like really trying to pick and choose between styles. That's a really great idea. It's really well done. And I think my wife would tell you that if I came downstairs and couldn't shut up about the story, it was obvious it was going in. So there were a
Right.
couple like that, and there's a couple that just made me laugh, out loud, because a couple of them got me really good. And so, I mean, that's a common thread between them, is, if it was something that just actually really got me, then I was like, all right, I dig it. But I just didn't want to screw up and be like, okay, we've got a string of top 10 and top 5 and even top 3 hits, if you would, with Raconteur's books. I didn't want to be the one that debuts out in the cornfields. Number 10, number 5, number 2, number 3, number 985. So I just didn't want to be the first flop.
I am. I apologize. I'm out of questions for you right now, Chris. What else do you want us to know?
Like I said, let's see. We're doing novels now and boys' books, boys' literature. New one out, Boys Own Starship by Chris Nuttall. Had a really great debut. So buy for your sons, your nephews, your little cousins, maybe your little the little neighborhood kid who won't leave you alone, or whatever you got there. Um, Makes a great gift. Novels, we had John Van Stry and now Kent Pierce. We did them as 3-part serials, and now they're out in whole. They're all illustrated. And there's going to be more kids' books coming, and more novels in 26. And so you can maybe compare and see if, as a writer, I'm talking out of my ass as opposed to me as an editor. Rock and Roll Mercenaries, which started life as a anthology that, themed around Meatloaf and Jim Steinman songs, and kind of morphed over the years, and that's out on Nate LaPointe's Miss Creek label. Oh gosh, listen to me. I can't stop talking about music.
I can put that thing up on screen
Go
for
for it.
anybody who's listening in their car or something like that. It's really important that when you're in the Geek Gab, you pull the car over, stop whatever you're doing, and just watch whatever I put on screen. Like, I do this for you guys. Or better yet, just look at your phone while you're driving. It's okay. Nothing bad will happen. But yeah, showing Rock and Roll Mercenaries, a pulp rock anthology. That's on Amazon too. And yeah, you're hanging out with a couple of other great writers, at least a couple of other writers that I recognize, which is unusual because I don't read much. I see J.D. Cowan, I see N.R. LaPointe, and yourself in there. So uh, I guarantee you're going to enjoy your story, Chris. But if you don't, there's a bunch of stuff in there that you can read
You,
instead.
you can't go wrong. And by the way, Nate actually created a soundtrack album.
Get out.
I'm dead serious, man. It's on YouTube, and use an AI music generator, but each story has its own unique song. And I'm sitting there going, we do a lot of really cool marketing stuff at Raconteur. That one, I was like, damn, man, we gotta find a way to top that one now, because it's like, all right, now the books come with soundtrack albums. All right, great.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd have to compete with that all of a sudden. Great.
No, you can tell there's a real Streets of Fire kind of vibe on some of this too, and the reason I was so hard up to do this is because I haven't written a lot of action yet personally. I was actually kind of intimidated to do it. Usually when I started writing, I got hired in to do like higher end military stuff because of some of the, almost more like a consultant than a writer at times. But it was like, nah, I got to do something that's just straight up, it's got some straight up action in it, because that's like, I got to get over that hump. And I had to get over that psychological hump of, hey, can I actually write action scenes? Because I really haven't done it before. I've collaborated with people who handled that stuff and whatnot. So it was good. I needed to get over that. And I'm pretty happy with the results. So, but there's some really good stuff in here, and it's fun. Like I said, I'm a fan of bad '80s music themed movies, Daddy. DW. So, like Crossroads, I've seen it. Rock and Roll, yep, that's a movie that is emblazoned on my brain forever. Holy smoke! This is Spinal Tap, and I grew up with MTV, so it's that's my sweet spot. For guilty pleasure enjoyment, for stuff like that. So. Anyway, give this a read. There's some great writers in there, and it's fun. And like I said, check out the soundtrack album. Even
I love that. I love that it's a soundtrack. I think we need more of that.
this is 21st century, so who knows? We'll see what else we come up with.
John Ringo did a soundtrack for the Islands of Rage and Hope, or the Dark Tide Rising anthology or series.
Yeah, he had a playlist in there, and that was great. That's how I discovered Crook Shadows was Ringo. The songs Nate did for Mercs there they're all original. They're all taken from the text of our stories. That's where the lyrics all come from. So, and then different styles too, man. You got some straight up metal and some hard rock and some other neat stuff. But yeah, Ringo's books actually turned me on to a lot of different stuff that I hadn't been listening to at the time. So I thank him for that.
Amazing. Sorry, I just heard the Crew Shadows, and I'm like, who listens to those? All right, I'm in.
Very. The only other time I've heard about them were goth jokes in one of the gamer cartoons or comics I used to read. One of the big ones, but I can't even remember who it is now.
Well, it's funny. Like Ringo, not only connected with music, but with web comics early on, because there was that connection with Sluggy Freelance
Oh
and
my word, Sluggy Freelance! I haven't heard
yeah,
that in a million years.
I know, right? I know it's because we all got old somehow all of a sudden. But I get who knows. Early 2000s nostalgia will come back maybe at some point. I mean, I actually saw somebody waxing poetic about Homestar Running the other day, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Why not?
I don't actually have anything else to ask.
Yeah, man. Well, it was a great chat. Before we say goodbye, or anything, Chris, you get the final say. First of all, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Let's see. No, just take a look at the Racketeer Substack if you're a writer. Plenty of open calls left this year. A couple shots to get in there still, and stay tuned because we're going to be planning 2026 soon, and we'll see what comes out of that. So yeah, like I said, boys' books, novels, anthology, still doing that. Dave Freer edited Mad Science for us, and the cover is like a real throwback to Reanimator. Not on purpose, but it seems like synchronicity is a thing. So check it out and enjoy those too.
Awesome. Absolute pleasure having you on. As for me, I appreciate talking to you. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. I'll plug one of our chat friends. Bradford Walker's in the chat. Simon Hogwood's in the chat. Thanks so much. Bradford Walker never misses. If you like role-playing games or tabletop games like I do, that includes you, Chris, and everyone listening, go check out his blog, bradfordcwalker.blogspot.com. I think he's on Substack too. You can find him on Twitter. Just look him up. Guy never misses. And I hope everybody checks out Rock and Roll Mercenaries and the Weird Wars stories. Really cool stuff. But that's it for the week. Great talking with y'all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you want to tell them who's up for next week?
Absolutely. I would love to. Next week, if you tune in, we'll be talking with Brian Niemeyer, science fiction author and former co-host of the Geek Gab. He's going to have a 10th anniversary edition of his Soul Cycle stories coming out. He's starting that up, I think, this week or next on Kickstarter with brand new layout, brand new art, and everything like that. So we're going to check in with what he's been doing and what's in the future. So I'm really excited about that. Really looking forward to that. So hang out with us next week as we talk with Brian Niemeyer. Can we call him the science fiction grandmaster yet? He's close. He's close.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay, I'm like I don't believe I have any authority over that. Nobody asked me about, nobody asked me anything.
Nobody consulted me on this.
Yeah. I called John C. Wright the science fiction grandmaster, but I've heard other people call him that too, so I figure I'm safe on that. Is it my turn?
And that's it for me, DW. Take us away.
All right, folks. This has been Geek Gab for Monday, June 23rd, 2025. We want to thank everyone who tuned in live, participated in the chat. We want to thank everyone who will tune in later. We do our show just about every week at just about the same time. That's 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on youtube.com/GeekGab. Once again, that's youtube.com/ Geek Gab, but we are also available on the Apple iTunes Store, on SoundCloud.com, and on the Google Play Store. Just do a search for Geek Gab. You can download us to the device of your choice, or to your computer, or listen to us on the web. We are signing out for today, folks, but don't you worry, don't you fret. We will be back.